When we hang you from a street light and you choking out your last, I want you to remember my face.
It came to my knowledge just recently on the internet that a lot of people did not like BioShock 2 when it came out. Some even thought it was a bad game. It is not a bad game by any means. It is in fact a very good game, and it has been shown a lot of love recently. The story overall is good and emotional. Characters are also intriguing, not on par with the characters and story of the first game, but still very good. Gameplay is a massive overhaul compared to BioShock 1, and graphics also received a very noticeable upgrade. It lets you explore Rapture this time as a Big Daddy, offering a fresh perspective. The story is basically a glorified, chaotic custody battle. The game was and is very good in my opinion. I've always liked it. It just had the unfortunate fate of following up a critically acclaimed classic, BioShock. In this video, I will highlight the criticism at launch, the rough development, its story, gameplay, my thoughts, and graphics. BioShock 2 had a messy and rushed development. After the gigantic success of BioShock 1, Take-Two Interactive founded 2K Marine to work on BioShock 2. BioShock 2 was not developed by Irrational Games, instead 2K Marine developed this one. 2K Marine did include some members of those involved in BioShock 1, but lead director Kevin Levine was not part of the crew. He was busy working on BioShock Infinite. It only underwent 2.5 years of development, really rushed by the publisher, part of it being to capitalize on the success of BioShock 1 as much as possible. The plot also underwent numerous changes through the development. Despite these challenges, 2K Marine actually managed to deliver a very good game in a short window.
Can you hear me?
In BioShock 2, you get to revisit Rapture and play as a Big Daddy, offering a sort of a new and different perspective. You play not just as any Big Daddy, but as Subject Delta, belonging to the Alpha series of Big Daddies. The Alpha series was the first functional Big Daddy series to be bonded to a little sister. The Alpha series was created to have an unbreakable bond to a single sister. If this Big Daddy wanders too far away from its bonded little sister or somehow manages to lose the little sister, it falls into a coma. This concept is significant to understand the nature of the bond between Subject Delta and his bonded daughter. The plot is basically a chaotic custody battle between Subject Delta and Dr. Lamb. The game starts through a cutscene in 1958, before the fall of Rapture. Subject Delta is following a little sister. Then a woman shows up and tells him that little sister is her daughter and takes her away. That woman is Dr. Sophia Lamb. Here, Subject Delta falls into a coma. This takes place in 1958, before the events of BioShock 1. 10 years later, something prompts Subject Delta to wake up. The game tries to give you the feeling of urgency at the start, as you have to find the little sister you are bonded to in order to save yourself. And apparently she also needs saving. Hence, the custody battle begins. The name of that little sister is Eleanor Lamb, daughter of Dr. Sophia Lamb. The story of BioShock 2 explores the bond between Eleanor and Subject Delta, featuring a strong emotional core. This was something that was absent from the masterful story of BioShock 1. In 1968, Andrew Ryan is dead and Frank Fontaine is also dead. The remnants of Rapture are under the control of Sophia Lamb. She has full control over the splicers as well. Sophia Lamb is the philosophical antithesis of Andrew Ryan. Andrew Ryan was a firm believer of individualism. His philosophy was based on Ayn Rand's objectivism, and the resulting society, Rapture, was purely capitalistic. Everything was privately owned. Dr. Lamb, on the other hand, is a collectivist. She believes individuals need to eliminate their own selfish desires and put the needs of society or group first. Dr. Lamb is a master psychiatrist and a master manipulator. Being the exact opposite of Andrew Ryan, she moved up the ranks of Rapture because she represented everything the people could not have. Religion, faith, this is revealed in the game. She was primarily brought down to Rapture for counseling. She used her therapy sessions to manipulate emotionally vulnerable individuals. She grew increasingly popular and started building a family. She grew very popular very fast. So popular in fact that Andrew Ryan had to lock her up. When you are playing as Subject Delta, you see in Rapture that she has built a family. This family blindly follows the instructions of Dr. Lamb. Dr. Bridget Tenenbaum makes a return and reveals that there have been kidnappings of little girls on the surface. Sophia Lamb is exploiting them for Adam. Mother Goose returns to aid the little ones once more. Tenenbaum is one of my favorite characters in BioShock. She undergoes some fantastic character development. Subject Delta must find Eleanor Lamb in order to save himself and her. Dr. Lamb is using her to create what she believes will be paradise. She needs Delta's help just as much as Delta needs her help. I plan on making a video in the near future analyzing the complete story of BioShock 2 and its characters in detail. But for now, this was the brief version of the plot. The game does explain through audiobooks how Rapture wound up under Dr. Lamb's control after the events of BioShock 1 and adds to the already rich lore of Rapture. Little sisters play an important part in the game in the story. Little sisters featured other than Eleanor can be saved or harvested like the first one. Saving or harvesting them will determine the kind of ending you get. Each location has some significant characters in it. Unlike the first game, this time around you get to decide the fate of a lot of the characters in the game. BioShock 2 also features a very sad, ongoing story of a man, Mark Meltzer, who comes to Rapture to find his little girl, Cindy, who was abducted from the surface. His story is really moving and emotional, and shows the depth of a father-daughter bond. Side stories like these really make any game special. It makes the realm of the game feel alive. I think the game has a very good story. It is relatively straightforward, no big twists or turns. When you compare it to the story and characters of BioShock 1, it falls short in my opinion. I will expand more on this in the criticism section. But that in no way means that it is a bad story. It is a very good story in its own respective place, and I like it a lot. Minerva's Den is a single-player DLC for BioShock 2. You play as another Big Daddy, Subject Sigma. Dr. Bridget Tenenbaum, who initially makes a return in BioShock 2's story, reactivates Subject Sigma and sends Subject Sigma to Minerva's Den. It features a new plasmid and weapon as well. I really think Minerva's Den is a very good DLC. It has a great narrative and atmosphere, a very memorable antagonist as well. I will make a detailed video on Minerva's Den shortly in the future. It definitely needs to be shown some more appreciation. It is very underrated. Now on to the gameplay. This section of the game is way more refined than the first BioShock, and you notice it immediately. The first change you notice is that you can dual wield a plasmid and a weapon at the same time. A very important change that improves the experience. Majority of the plasmids are retained from the first game. Sonic Boom is not in the game. A new one called Scout is in the game. It allows you to scout as a ghost version of yourself, leaving your real body. Electrobolt, Incinerate, Winter Blast, etc. They all are retained in the game and make an appearance. Feel way better than the first game when you use them. Leveling them up can be felt in a substantial manner in combat. Level 3 with Incinerate, Electrobolt and Winter Blast add the mechanism where if you hold down the button it emits a stream of the respective plasmid. For instance, a stream of ice in case of Winter Blast. Feels very cool. The general movement feels and looks very similar to Jack from BioShock 1. Seems like they just reused the movement with some sound effects to make it seem like a Big Daddy. First aid and Eve slots are now 5, you can get more by using Adam. Adds a bit more of a challenge initially. Weapons in the game feel way better than the first one. Improvements at the weapon upgrade station now improve the weapon a great deal. A special upgrade can be used after 3 normal upgrades. A fully upgraded weapon now really pays off. You can also aim down the sights. It's not very good, but it is there. Your tonics, gene tonics, are now in one giant pool instead of separate sections. I did like the old structure better, but you do not have to waste Adam increasing every specific tonic slot, so that is good. There are some really nice gene tonics which you can use suited to a particular playstyle. I love using the drill, so I have a few tonics which greatly increase the damage of the drill. One overpowered combo for me is using Winter Blast combined with the drill. Can shatter anyone into bits. This combo combined with some gene tonics related to the drill have made everything a cakewalk for me, at least later in the game. On normal difficulty, by the way. Underwater exploration is also there in the game. One fine little detail is that you can find the sea slugs that produce Adam and you can get some Adam from them. Subtle detail, but very nice. Hacking is very simplified in this one. We have a streamlined hacking system. You also get a new remote hacking tool. You can hack cameras, turrets, and security parts from a distance. The previous system was fine for me, but time consuming, immersion breaking, as you could start hacking in the middle of combat and it would take you to a different screen into the hacking minigame. Overall, a very good improvement. Splicers, Thuggish, Spider, Leadhead, who also use explosives and even shotguns now, are retained, along with Big Daddies. New enemy types include Brute Splicer, variants of Big Daddies, and Big Sisters, the agile version of Big Daddy that also shoots plasmids. This time around, collecting Adam requires a little sister to gather it from a body. Splicers attack you while she's collecting Adam, and it can prove challenging at first, till you figure out the mechanics of the game. Very easy by the end of the game. After you are done with the little sisters in a level, Big Sister shows up to fight you. It can be challenging initially, even later in the game sometimes, because you have a small window of time to get ready to take her on. Fighting Big Sisters was not a big deal by the end of the game for me, using my trusted combo of Drill and Winter Blast. It can be a bit hard when she suddenly shows up and you're not ready, but other than that, not that big of a deal. Fighting Big Daddies was also only a challenge at the start of the game, no problem at all as I went on. The game will give you more of a challenge on difficulties higher than normal. So if you are looking for a bit of a challenge and you are familiar with the mechanics of BioShock, then you should definitely play it on the hard difficulty or even higher. It is worth mentioning that other than one or two, there are no big boss fights in the game. All in all, gameplay is a significant improvement over the first, and I enjoy it a lot. I do feel like there should have been some big boss fights to provide definitive closure to chapters, but still it is what it is. Even now, years later, the gameplay can be enjoyable. Using something like a machine gun or rivet gun does show its age. Plasmids always feel fresh. I love using the drill like I mentioned, along with Winter Blast. For some reason, it brings me genuine joy to see my enemies being shattered into bits. Multiplayer is not available with the remastered version. I never actually played it, to be honest, but it certainly was interesting and very dear to some players. Now let's talk about the graphics. Graphics are really improved in BioShock 2. It looks way better in comparison to BioShock 1. They hold up really well considering the age of the game. Character models, though, they do not look that good. Even significant characters seem to have low quality character models. They are still, I think, a huge upgrade over BioShock 1. Lights and reflections look really good, shadows are dynamic and really detailed. Little Sisters look way better. They used to look like those inhumane little monsters in BioShock 1. A much needed redesign. And Dr. Tenenbaum has also received a redesign, a much needed one as well. She looked nothing like her video picture in the first game. That is improvement. Effects such as plasmid effects have received subtle changes, but they make the effects look way more refined as compared to BioShock 1. I played the remastered version that comes with the BioShock collection. There are no graphical changes between the two other than lightning as far as my eyes perceive. Lightning, in my opinion, was better in the original and a little more detailed as well. You can also explore areas overrun with water. Underwater graphics look pretty decent. The remastered version of BioShock 2 had pretty bad crashing issues. I've read a lot about people reporting crashes and unstable performance. Personally, I have not experienced a single crash during my playthrough. There were moments where the game did feel choppy and not as smooth as it should be. But that is it, no crashes. That being said, if you are on PC and are looking to buy the game, then I suggest going for the original version. And on Steam, if you buy BioShock 2 Remastered, you will get BioShock 2 Original with it. Now let's talk about the criticism on the game. I will first of all address the general criticism on the game when it came out and over the years what it was, and then share my thoughts. When it came out, a fair chunk of people thought the game was average. Many thought it was too similar to the first and the story was not good or forgettable. I think being familiar is not a bad thing. Rapture is one of the best settings in gaming history, and the introduced gameplay system from the first feels very smooth and refined in this sequel. The graphics are also pretty decent. BioShock 2 is a really good game with a very good story as well that is deep and emotional, relatively straightforward but deep and emotional. The thing is, BioShock set the bar a little too high. The plot and story, characters were way superior in my opinion in BioShock 1. The story is relatively straightforward and does not give you any big twists. Not a bad thing because I think the developers knew they could not outdo themselves with the big twist in BioShock 1 and wanted to keep a straightforward story. BioShock also featured Andrew Ryan, who is one of the best antagonists for me or anti-hero characters in gaming history. Sophia Lamb is not comparable to him, a very good antagonist but not comparable to him. The side characters were also way more notable in BioShock. BioShock 2 had an impossible task of following up the story and plot from BioShock 1. Overall inferior to BioShock 1, I think it did really well. The strong emotional bond between Subject Delta and Eleanor is something that was missing from the first one. Better moral choices that impact the fate of characters. These elements make BioShock 2 stand out. And another thing I felt that BioShock 1 did better was it created an intrigue about its universe, which cannot be replicated and is not replicated in BioShock 2. Entering Rapture for the first time and wondering what happened to Rapture and slowly connecting the dots made the experience of BioShock quite unparalleled. But these things in no way mean that BioShock 2 is a bad game. I think it is a very good game with a very good story. But BioShock 1 was better and is better. BioShock 2 was really underappreciated for a long time, but recently it has been shown a lot of love, and deservedly so. I know a lot of players go back and find it aging better than they expected. Well, it deserves to be appreciated. I think it is a very good game and deserves to be played. Those who find Rapture fascinating can dive into the city again and experience it from the perspective of a big daddy with a strong emotional bond with Eleanor Lamb. It has a brilliant setting, an engaging story, and gameplay that improves the experience by a great deal as compared to the first. And it also features a great DLC, Minerva's Den. I 100% recommend BioShock 2 to anyone looking for a solid narrative-driven experience and also to old players looking to return. It has aged really well. With this, I'd like to thank you for your time. Goodbye.